My name is Gainesville Wilfred Mingo. I was born in Key West, Florida in September 9th, 1939, and I weighed just about 9 pounds. 9,939, those are the magic numbers, and 9 pounds, and coming from Key West, Florida. My mother was Mary Sawyer, who married Reynolds Mingo, and at an early age, they divorced. I think I was around about 2 years old, because I don't even remember when they divorced. But when they did divorce, my grandmother raised me, and so I was raised by Zerlina Strong Reckley. These are all Bahamian names. My people are basically out of the Bahamas. My father's side is from the island of Lutra, and my mother's side is from New Providence, Nassau. And so we're all Bahamians. However, we do have Cubans in the family. That's why I've indicated that I want some Cuban music and Bahamian music. I have cousins by the name of Gonzalez, Lopez, Suarez, and Rivas. So those are the Cuban connection. But most of the Key Westers they're connected by the Bahamas or Cuba. And we got a lot of mixing going on in there. So it's a real unique culture of the Key Westers, the original Key Westers. The Key Westers of the day, I don't know who they are, where they come from. They come from all other places other than the original islands of Bahamas and Cuba. It's a different type of atmosphere in Key West right now anyway. After my mother and father divorced, they went separate ways, remarried. My father had 5 additional kids. My mother had 5 additional kids. I'm the oldest of both of those families. Both of the families consider me as the big brother, and I function in that role. What's good about that is that I've been able to be the role model for that family, in that I'm the first to have attended and graduated from a post-secondary institution. And as a result of that, some of those kids have followed. And if they didn't follow, their kids followed, because I was there as a role model for them. I attended Key West, Douglas High School in Key West, Florida, from the 1st grade to just about the 8th grade. After the 8th grade, I went to Tampa, Florida, and I graduated from Middleton Senior High School there in Tampa, Florida. I left Tampa and I went to Florida A&M University to attend FAMU. And after leaving FAMU, I was commissioned into the military as an officer. I stayed in the military for about 7 years, field artillery officer. And I'll back up a little bit to the college days, because that'll tie in with my wife. That's how I met my wife in Tallahassee. Now, people ask this all the time, you're from Key West, she's from Tallahassee. How you guys get together? Well, it was at Florida A&M that we got together. And the rest of it is history. We just happened to hook up and stay hooked for 45 years. And it's a real good experience. She's told you about how the family treated her and all that kind of stuff. And it was kind of hard for me, because I had more freedom than she had as a kid coming up. And I also had the opportunity to leave Key West and go to another city. And as a result of going to the other city, which is Tampa, Florida, that's when I really got the break to go to Florida A&M. Otherwise, I don't think I would have actually gone to Florida A&M. My parents were not capable of sending me anywhere. They weren't even thinking about college. My mother didn't graduate from high school, and my father did graduate from high school. So the best that they can have for me is that, hey, that I complete high school. And my mother always said, well, I'll be glad when he completes high school, which is great. And nobody ever talked about sending him to college, because there was no money there in the first place. Having gone to school in Tampa, Florida, I had an agricultural instructor who encouraged me to go to college. He said, boy, you should go to college. And I'm thinking, he said, yeah, what am I going to go to college with? He said, well, I'll try to get you a work-study position. Now, I thought work-study meant that it was like a scholarship. They're going to give me this money so I can go to college. And that wasn't the case. And I found out, hey, I need to work and get me some money. So I went back to Key West for the summer, and I was shining shoes, earning money to go to college. So I had enough money to catch the Greyhound bus from Key West to ride to Tallahassee. And when I got to Tallahassee, I was looking through this little book, And I said, they need so much for tuition, so much for this, and so much for that. Well, I had the money for the tuition. I had the money for the meal. No, I didn't even have the money for the meal ticket, basically, in the dormitory. But I didn't have any money for the food. So I didn't have any food, and I didn't have any books. But I still got there anyway. And from what I did, I would sort of like find my homeboys and homegirls who didn't want to eat breakfast. They didn't want to get up for breakfast. So I get that meal ticket, and I eat breakfast. And some young ladies still watching their figures, so they didn't want to eat lunch either. But everybody wanted to eat the last meal, so I had to find a way to get the last meal done. So I had a few bucks, and I would go down to a place called Mom Mary's Kitchen and get all the greasy food and everything else, all the bulky stuff, so I could, make it through. And that's how I went through the first year of college, borrowing people's books and borrowing the meal cards so I can survive. But after that first term at Florida A&M, I missed the honor roll by 0.3 of a point. And that sort of like really, the light came on. Boy, I can do college work. And I found a job which was on campus collecting clothes for the cleaners. The guy would come around in his truck. I would collect all the clothes on the different floors and have them ready. And so I earned a little money that way. And I found other little odd jobs and stuff so I can stay up there. The only loan that I can remember getting at that time was they had a national defense loan. I don't even think they have it in existence right now. But that was about $500 that I had to borrow for the tuition and fees and all that other stuff. And but after that time, that first term, I said, hey, I can do the college work, and it was a different ball game then. And so I made all kind of arrangements to stay at Florida A&M because I was turned on to education. And I want to thank Mr. J.B. Green from Tampa, Florida, who said, boy, you can do college work. Because he believed in me and no one else did. And like I said, my parents wouldn't even thought about sending me to college because they couldn't. And no one had ever been to college. And so I consider that an opportunity of a lifetime. And having met my wife there, we left A&M, went to Germany, stayed 3 years in Germany together. And this is the thing that I think solidified the family, our marriage, in that here we are in Germany, no family, nobody there to influence your decisions about anything. They couldn't call you on. They could call you on the phone, but they wouldn't, and they couldn't come over there to visit. And so here we are. We had to make our own way, and we just hung together and did our thing. And those 3 years in Germany really pulled us together. And I left Germany on my way to Vietnam, and so that was 1 year apart from each other. That's the only time we've ever been apart from each other, that 1 year. While I was in Vietnam, I decided, well, I'm not going to let her stay with her parents, so we bought a house in Tallahassee, put her in the house. So she stayed in the house for that 1 year until I got back from Vietnam. Then my assignment was I had to go back to Fort Sill, Oklahoma, from there to do the advanced course for the artillery. Then they sent me down to Fort Bliss, Texas for more work with missiles and that kind of stuff. And I had, after I completed that, I went to Missouri. I was an ROTC instructor in Missouri at Lincoln University. That's where I also worked on my master's degree, Master's of Education, counseling and guidance. So I got that degree while I was there. And that's when I was, after 3 years, I was, the end of that tour, I got orders to go back to Vietnam. Now, the reason I didn't go back to Vietnam, Cynthia didn't tell the complete story, not that I didn't want to go back to Vietnam, because there were a lot of people who hadn't even gone the first time. But I had a friend, a good buddy, we were ROTC instructors together at Missouri, who had gone to Vietnam, going back to Vietnam on his second tour. He was almost like I was right now. Hey, I'm at the end of the line, and also I was ready for a promotion to major. What they did with my buddy, they held his promotion up until he got to Vietnam. They promoted him to major, but he never did make it back here. I had to get that body, go out to California, get that body, bring it back to Florida, stay with that family for that week to take care of the funeral arrangements, the whole work. And I was thinking, that's the same thing that they're doing to me. They're holding up my promotion. They said, I got to go to Vietnam, and then I'll get it. I might be the next one coming back in the box. So I went to Washington with Cynthia, and we tried to find out what was going on. Could they delay it? They couldn't do anything, or they wouldn't do anything. So I decided I would resign my commission. As a captain, I was doing pretty well. As a matter of fact, I had done real well in the military, and I think I would have gone way up the ranks the way I was going. But the idea that this is what has happened to my friend, and and say that could be me the next time around, I decided, well, I'll just let him go. And so I left the military telling them that I wanted to work on my master's degree, which I was working on, and after I get my degree, I might consider coming back. Well, I never did consider going back. I left Missouri, came to Florida, and went to Tallahassee looking around there for jobs, went to Jacksonville looking around for jobs, and came back to Tallahassee. And a friend of mine said, hey, man, you should go to Gainesville. They got all kind of jobs in Gainesville. I'd never been to Gainesville in my life. Never in my life have been to Gainesville. So we're going to Key West because they had offered me a job down there as assistant principal. And I was going to come through Gainesville anyway. I'll stop through here and see what was going on. And I stopped through and stopped at Taggart Hall. The first person that I talked to up there was a retired general. This general had the same military background I had. We've been same places, same experience, the whole work. And he said, well, I don't have any jobs or anything, but he would refer me to another guy in housing, a full colonel. Had the same military experience. We all field artillerymen. And the thing about being a field artilleryman is that is a technical field. Not too many people, especially blacks, were in that field area because of the technical kind of experience you got to have in order to shoot your missiles and your artillery pieces and all that, and your directions, all kind of stuff. It's just technical stuff. So he said, yeah, okay, well, I got something here, but can you wait around for a couple of days? I said, man, I'm on my way to Key West. I can't wait around. I said, wait, just give me a couple of days. And what they did, they put us up in the dormitory for a couple of nights, and I said, I got to get down to Key West. What they were doing was checking my background, because at that time the University of Florida had a little disturbance. The black kids had walked out because of the dissatisfied with what was going on. And so they were really like, hey, we can't just let anybody come in because this guy might be another militant coming in here. They create some more disturbance. So they checked my background out, called Missouri and all that. I found out about this later because the people in Missouri that I talked with said, hey, you know what, they had some people here, they were calling, they finding out about you and all that. What were you doing? And I told them I was trying to get a job. And I put two and two together that that's what these guys were doing. Want to make sure they had somebody here who's not going to come and disturb or ruffle the water. So they did offer me the job, but at that time I said, I can't work for that kind of money. I said, you know where I came from. And the colonel know what kind of money I was making. And he said, but Mingo, look here, this is what we're going to do for you. You got a house, so you don't have to pay no rent. You got maid service. The only thing you long distance calls you had to pay for. Other than that, so you got all that, and plus you can go to school and all the hard work. I said, well, maybe I'll think about it. And I took a day and I thought about it. I said, well, this might be the better deal. And so I stayed here. Still went to Key West to decline the position down there, told them what was going on. And really that was the best thing I could have done, because staying at the University of Florida allowed me the opportunity to get the PhD. It was a free deal because I took 6 free credits every term and eventually ended up with a PhD. I could not have done that in Key West. So even though I made less money, the opportunities were greater here. It was better for raising the family too. We found out all this kind of thing. If we had gone to Key West, one way in, one way out, limited opportunities and everything else. Here, there were great opportunities, and we took advantage of them. And so we're thankful for my friend directed me to Gainesville, and the fact that I hooked up with people who had similar backgrounds and knew what type of a person I was, and so they took a chance with me. And so for the last 4 or 5 years or so, we've been around here in the Gainesville area, which is great. Now, while we're in the Gainesville area too, we're always been, religiously connected. So we hooked up with a church. We didn't go to find a big church. We didn't care for all this other stuff that was going on, the names and everything else. We found a little small church that needed some help. And that's what we checked into Mount Olive AME. At the time we went there, it was not like it is right now. It was an old wooden building that the pigeons were up in the belfry, dropping and everything else all over the place. And so we were in this place, and we enjoyed being there. And they were building on the other, the brick structure right now, but we started out in the old wooden place there, and we just stayed there and got with the family, with the church family, and we became part of them. Now the thing that we did not tell most people, they found out that we were educators, but we didn't let anybody know anything about our background, anything. We just moved in as part of the family. And so for a long time, people didn't even know I had the PhD. I didn't tell them. I didn't want them to know. And when they found out, oh, doctor, no, I'm brother. And that's where I am still right now. I'm brother G.W. Mingo around all those people at the church. Let's see, what else is there that I can talk about? Our experience here in Gainesville has been productive in that we like to work with youth. I used to direct the Upward Bound program at the University of Florida. The Upward Bound program is designed to provide college preparatory experiences for low-income kids. And during the 30 years that I ran that project out there, about 85–90% of the kids that I worked with ended up in somebody's college. And it was a real good turnout of kids going into college. Now, the public school system here benefited from the work that I was doing in that. We didn't get any credit for the fact that they go into college, but the public schools did, and that, hey, they can show that, hey, our graduation and college placement rates are such. If the students came through to me in Upward Bound, without a doubt, they're going to graduate from high school and eventually end up in a college. So real good numbers were the Alachua County school system was getting at that time. I imagine they're still doing the same thing right now, but I don't think they were as high as it was when I was there. What I do to this very day for any student who participated in the Upward Bound program while I was there, if they graduate from college now, all they have to do is send me an invitation or send me some kind of formal document indicating that they're graduates of the college. I will send them a card and some money. That's my commitment to the Upward Bound students. I have one student who's going to be sending me a card this week. And as a matter of fact, he wants me to come to this little ceremony out in Archer this coming Saturday. And so that's a connection I still have with these kids. I don't want to let them down. I've always tried to be a role model for them. I've been hard, but I've been fair. And they'll tell you, too, that, but this guy, he's hard. Yeah, that's the way you got to be. I mean, they have to have structure. Someone come in there who not going to allow them to just tear up things and just be, destructive and not, organized. And so that's the way that I've been. I've always encouraged them, go to college, do the right thing. And we try to be in that respect. Now, I think I want to mention this, too, because I did not have a functional family. My grandmother raised me. My mother and father went their separate ways. And as a result of that, I could have really been a terrible guy because I've experienced some things, I was out there, and I could have really gone out there. But for some reason or other, the small voice said, "Me, that's not what you should do." Because my grandmother was the type that she wasn't going to let it happen anyway. So I stayed on the right track. But I wanted to be able to be a model for these kids, and that just because you come from a broken home, that means that you have to do all that negative stuff. I said, my family, I didn't have anything. We lived in the projects, just a poor person, had nothing. I said, but if you want to make it, you can make it. But you have to decide in your mind that you don't want to do what your parents and your other relatives have done. Because I've seen a lot of negative stuff in the family. And my thing was, I'm just not going to do that. I'm not going in that direction. That my mother and my father, my uncle, my aunts, whatever, I'm not going in that direction. I'm just not going to do it. And so that's what I was telling these kids. You can make up your own mind and you can decide to go. Just like I was the first to do this, I was the first to do a whole lot of things. When I became an officer in the military, nobody in my family ever been an officer. My uncle was the proudest thing around. Oh, my nephew is this and that. Boy, he was always talking about stuff. But I didn't realize my father was equally as proud. This guy was more proud than I could even imagine. Because when he died, I'm at this funeral, and all these people saying, oh, you're the one who was in Germany. You went to Austria. You went to, you went to all these places. He was telling me about this stuff. So I was sending stuff back home, writing in the cards and all that, letting them know where I was located, etc. But what my father was doing, he was telling the world, my son, my son, my son. Now, even though he didn't raise me, but he was still proud of his son. And I found that out at his death, how proud this guy was. Now, I found out, this is what I experienced this one. Even though he wasn't a father to me, we didn't live together, son, when we had children, my Anne-Marie and Gerald, he was the best grandfather to those kids that he could have ever been. And I was saying, God, this guy's making it up now for what he didn't do for me. And I said, that's all right. I could have been mad with him. And I could, oh man, I don't want nothing to do with him, because that's the way I was. I was really upset with him because he wasn't there. Because when I needed stuff as a kid, I just couldn't get it. But I said to myself, and I tell the upper bound students saying that, hey, those people, they make mistakes, but you don't have to make the same mistake. You don't have to be mad at people. Cynthia is the one who pulls all this stuff together now with these kids, and I'll assist her. I am retired right now, and I enjoy being retired, and I really don't want to do anything. This is my first time out of the house today to come to this thing, and I love that. I get involved with a few other little things, Cotton Club, etc., but I really don't want to do any work. But if she has it all scared, like that, the Ronald McDonald thing, that stuff with the churches, she's going Jacksonville, Orlando, all over the place, and I'll tag along with her, to help her out. And so, that's how we work with the kids. And for the youth, the males, I try to be the role model for the males, because sometimes, you need a man to talk to these kids, these male kids. And so that's my part that I'll play there. And when she gets involved with the school, she's still doing things at the school. There are young men there who need some guidance, so I'll pop myself in there and help her with that. So that's how we get involved.
I watched you show up at J-Fest, one of the first people to show up there in the morning. You were one of the last people to leave at night. You were running around with tables and chairs on your shoulders and making every 18-year-old boy there look like, what do you do? Okay,
this is one thing that I do, and I'm proud of this too. I believe in taking care of your body. When I was a kid coming up, I was exposed to all of this bad stuff, and I could have been out there doing it all. But I decided, even though I had a little alcohol in my system as a kid, the first time I smoked a cigarette was when my mother had a party. They like to party, and so they have the cigarettes, and everybody leaves. I go there and straighten out the cigarette, go under the house. We had the house up off the ground, go smoke this thing, and I got choked and almost burned the house down because the cigarette and everything else under the house there. And so that's the first time I had the cigarette. And then there was a little gin left there, so I snapped a little gin. That stuff's burnt down. And so I had those negative experiences. And then as I got to the little teenager, about 11, 12, we were out in the projects, and we were going to drink some wine and some beer. So I drank a little of that, and oh man, that stuff is terrible. And so that was my experience with the smoking and the drinking. And I said, that is not for me. Plus what I've seen in the family, these people here, I mean, they're drunk and they get up the next morning, you don't know where they've been. You know, I see that in the family. I said, I can't do that. So from that experience, I said, I am going to take care of my body. So basically it started like 11th, 12th grade. I started getting involved heavily into sports and athletics and stuff like that. I just kept up the product. I exercise every morning. I've been doing that from 11th grade. I don't do weights and all this kind of stuff like people do. I don't that whole heavy power stuff. Basic stuff, calisthenics, pushing up, setting up, stretching and all that, and just keep my body in good shape. And so that's the thing that I was telling kids also. When I was in Upper Bound, I would get them up 6 o'clock in the morning. We'd get out on the track. We'd run around for about a mile or two. Then you go take your shower. You go get your breakfast. I try to encourage them to do balanced meals because I don't have any medication in my system at all. Right. I don't have to take vitamins. I'm not on the high blood pressure. No cholesterol problems. Nothing. I don't have any of that kind of problem. And that's mainly because of the fact that I just take care of my body. It's going to break down one of these days. Now, something's going to happen. But for right now, I am 68 years old. I'm 68. And like I said, I can outdo a whole lot of kids, 18, 19-year-olds. They can't even keep up with me. Okay? My son, he's always wondering, Dad, you're still strong. I said, yep. So I give him, we wrestle every now and then. And I still can handle him, But I bet this is on tape anyway, but he should realize this. He's getting to me, but I'm not even letting him know that, hey, man, if you're going a little more longer, I was going to have to give in. But I think the key is taking care of your body. Now, Cynthia, she likes to cook. She cooks balanced meals. That's another key to this whole thing. Because when I go to the doctor, they want to know what's going on. I say, hey, my wife does nice food. I don't have to worry about cholesterol, build-ups, all this kind of stuff, balanced meals, the whole works. I say, so that's what's helping me stay in good shape like I am. And like I said, I like to exercise. When I was in college, I ran a little track, and I think the cross-country and the miles and all this kind of stuff, those distances, give me the stamina, So when my mind said it's like, hey, I can get that done. That is not difficult. I don't have a problem. Oh, that's hard work. I don't take it that way. A little step at a time, and I'm going to get to the end. And that's my mindset. Don't worry about, hey, how big that thing looks. The way you're going to solve it, you're going to chip away a little bit at a time, and that's what I do. And so my exercise is small and it's continuous, and it has worked out good for me so far. Even all in the military. I mean, I used to compete with the men, the young bucks in there. And if anybody could outdo me in the PT, I'd give them a 3-day pass. Not too many of them got it. They didn't get a 3-day pass.
Outdo you in a run?
Well, the Army had PT. You got push-ups, set-ups, running, jumping, and all this kind of stuff. If you can outdo me, then hey, I'm gonna give you a 3-day pass. Not too many of them did it. I was able to just, and I just feel good. I feel good, and exercise is the key to that whole thing. It is the key to it, yeah. Because I like my friends, I mean, they're in real bad shape. I mean, compared to me, and they see me, wow, what do you do, man? And I tell them, oh, they don't want to do that, though.
Right.
They don't want to do that, yeah.
Community Day is more integrated than the way it was in my youth.
Oh yeah, when I was in Key West especially, it was segregation there. But Key West is a little different from most places. It's segregated, but then again, it wasn't segregated because like I said, in my family, we got Bahamians, Cubans, we're all mixed up in that thing, and we were living all next to each other, all around the place like that, and so. We knew there was segregation, but it wasn't like really stuff like up on the mainland there. Right. So I went to but even in Key West, we had a black high school and a white high school. And certain things, you had black fountains and all this kind of stuff, but it still was a different situation. So coming in an all-black environment from 1st through 12th grade and then into college, my first experience with integration, going to school with white kids, was in the military. I went to a military school. When I got my degree from Florida A&M, I had to go to what they call the field artillery school at Fort Sill, Oklahoma. That's the first time I've been in a class with any white folk.
Wow.
And I was the only black one in there.
Wow. Oh, that had to be weird. That had to be weird.
I was the only black person in there. That was a shocker. So, and this is the other part, they were not expecting me to graduate. Because, see, as I said earlier, that the field artillery and black folk, you don't find a whole lot of them, especially up on the officer rank. And so I was one of the few. I graduated. Went on into, from there I went to Germany. I spent 3 years in Germany. I left there as a second lieutenant. And 3 years later, I was a captain. I was on a fast track for promotions. Okay, and coming out of Vietnam into the ROTC thing, I was on that track to become the major. And so I would have been, if I say in the military, most of the guys that within my group, they were lieutenant colonels or colonels right now. And I think we had one that became a general. So, we were sort of moving up. We still stay together now. We have little meetings with that class of 62, 63 out of Florida A&M. Most of the guys are high-ranking. They're all retired just about now, but we're all on a fast track. For some of that class was just fantastic. I guess we were hungry for education, hungry for learning. I learned so much that, man, why these kids today don't have that burning desire for learning?
Right.
They just don't have it.
Can you tell me?
I'm still trying to figure out why is it they don't have it, because we really learn. And I mean, I look back at the military. I mean, I learned a lot from the military too that I can apply today in civilian life, which I do apply, and I get some things done that a lot of people can't get done. And I say, oh, it's because of my training and the experiences that I've had. So, the black-white thing, the segregated society and all that, I experienced it firsthand. But this is the thing about that. Even though you come up in that black environment, you have to be able to make the adjustment to this changing environment. And those people that can't make the change, either black or white, then they got a problem. They really have a problem. You have to make the change. Things are going to change, and you have to make the adjustment to it. And you can't just stay back there and I always want to be, in that protective and closed environment that you're in. No, that's not the way the world is. It's changing every day. Yeah, the tomorrow is different from the day. And you got to make the adjustment. And I tell kids this too about like the computer thing. Now, we didn't have computers back there. We didn't even know what a computer was. I think a computer that was back there in those days was about as big as this whole school, Now we got these little small handheld type things. But if your mind is not set to make that kind of change too, then you're not going to be able to deal with the computer. So we learned stuff like how to do logarithms the long way. I can still do them right now. I can still do square root problems, write them out and the whole works like that. That's what we learned in high school and in middle school and stuff like that. And when we had the little slide rule, we didn't have the computer at the time. We had the slide rule. I still have one at home now. I pull it out every now and then and say, hey, this is how you solve that problem. Okay. So those are some of the things that I remember. Yeah. Mingo is African.
Is African?
It's African. Even though we came out of the Bahamas, but there are some Mingos that came out of Carolinas, and there's a Mingo tribe of Indians from the Canadian border all the way down to Mississippi. If you ever travel in that area, you'll see Mingo Indians or Job Corps centers, etc., all the way up the Mississippi almost. And I did a little research on that. I was on campus one time, and I was being introduced to this guy from Africa, and he said, Mingo! And I said, I don't know this guy. Mingo! And so after a while he said, Mingo, you kept your name.
I said, what do you mean I kept my name? It's my first name, but nobody has a first name like mine. He said, but Mingo. He said, Mingo is African in the Cameroons. So I found out that in the Cameroon, the northwestern part of the Cameroons, near the Nigerian border there were groups of Mingos. And so I'm going to check that out whenever we get a chance.
All right.
But I was in Washington at the archives and in the Bureau of Indian Affairs because I found out about those Mingo Indians. Oh. And when I go into the place there, the guy, they kind of like thinking I'm coming to claim some land. I said, hold on. I am African. I am not here to claim any land or anything. I just want to find out about these Mingo Indians. And so after talking with them for a while, they took my name and address and all that, so they decided, well, okay, we'll send you some information. They did send me some information. The Mingo and the Iroquois, those are names that are synonymous. So if you hear Mingo or Iroquois up north, those are the same Indians. But they're coming down south, I think there's a different type of band or brand of Indians down there. So, but that's the connection. They're both African and Indian. Like Daniel Boone had an Indian named Mingo. I don't know whether you all saw the Daniel Boone series when that was coming on TV.
Oh.
But there's an Indian that played with him. His name was Mingo.
Right. Yes.
Whenever I'm traveling, though, I look through the telephone directory for Mingos, and I did find just about everywhere I go, I find a Mingo somewhere, and I found a lot of them that going out west who are actually Mingo Indians, and then there are whites by the name Mingos also, because coming out of Eleuthera. In Key West right now, there's a white family in there who are Mingos. They came out of Eleuthera. That's where my family came out of. And but I was trying to talk with them to find out, what's the connection here? How do we, end up in Key West, and we're separated? I said, there's got to be some connection here, some kind of thing. But they can't find a connection. But I did, when I went into Eleuthera, I found a white family of Mingo. This guy told me his family came from the Cape Verde Islands, which is near Africa. Right. And so then I got that connection with a guy from the Cameroons. He said there's the Mingos in the Cameroons. So I'm going to try to pull it all together. As I get information, I'm recording it and I'm giving it to my son and my daughter because, see, my father didn't do that to me. He just kept everything quiet. Mm-hmm. I didn't know a thing. So after I decided doing all the research, before he died, I said, hey, you got to tell me who these people are. Right. No, you got to tell me who these people are. So he started telling me, okay, that's my aunt there, that's my uncle, this is their kid, they got some people here and there and the other. So, I got some information before he died. But I wish I could have got that information earlier because there were members of the family who were in Fort Lauderdale and South Florida that I never got a chance to meet. Right. Never got a chance to meet. Okay. So Anne-Marie and Gerald, they're not going to be like me. They have more information about this family. And so as a result of that, with the family, the few people that we found in the Bahamas, we connected them. Hey, this is your cousin. This is blah, 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 blah. So they're being connected now.
Right. That's great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I told you about the Cuban connection in the family now. My grandmother was the only one in the family that spoke fluent Spanish. The rest of the family members speak a little Spanish, but not fluent Spanish. And I'm the other one that speaks more Spanish than anybody else.
Oh, really?
And because I just saw the need to, hey, man, we should all be speaking fluent Spanish. But, it's like, hey, you don't want to be identified with that you want to speak English. So everybody spoke English, right, as opposed to speaking Spanish. So, but we're going back making that connection too, because within my other side of the family, my brothers and sisters on the other side, that's a black family that came out of Cuba called the Plaws, PLA. That's part of their family. And my brother has married another part of a Cuban family that I forgot what their name, their maiden names are. But so we're all
Right.
interconnected there.